Find a Buy Tool contacted me recently to see if I might be interested in receiving a set of their 6 tools in exchange for a review. And I looked over the set and the description and thought, yeah, because they're M2 steel, they're cryogenically treated, and that kind of intrigued me. We'll talk about that a little more in a moment. Let me start off with my first impressions. First of all, I was struck with the very nice packaging it comes in. This padding protects the points in shipping. The handles are very attractive, black and some type of European hardwood. It appears to be ash with these silver marketing highlights. There's etching on all the tools, M2 Cryo high-speed steel. The set. The other thing I liked about them, that in terms of just their appearance, is these silver ferrules that don't show any wood, and they appear to be very solid. That makes it very attractive. But I think those are kind of superficial. But the other things I really liked was the tools seem to be very polished. The flutes are polished, which you don't see on inexpensive sets from the like of Benjamin Best or Harbor Freight. The edges of the tools tend to not be as dangerously sharp that you can injure yourself on along the edges. They tend to be rather refined, which is something you don't see on inexpensive tools. And frankly, sometimes you don't see it on more expensive sets. The mill marks from the machining are really almost not visible to the naked eye, which is a very nice quality. That means the cutting edge is not going to be a serrated edge like a kitchen knife when you sharpen it. So the cryogenic means it's been treated with a liquid nitrogen in the tempering process, which is supposed to make the tool steel 2 to 3 times more wear resistant. That's going to be difficult for me to evaluate, but I'm going to play around with these for the next couple of weeks. So what's included in the set is very similar to the 6-piece starter set that I recommend, or the 6 basic tools that I recommended back 4 years ago in my July 3rd, 2020 video on a starting tool set. First, we've got a spindle roughing gouge. So it's a pretty good size. The other thing I notice about all of these is the initial grinds. Know that normally when you get a set of tools from the manufacturer, in most instances they're not ready to be used. You really have to grind them to your own satisfaction because they're just getting them out the door with some edge, and you're going to have to change the bevel. But I was struck that I measured the angles on all the bevels, and they were all at a ground to a reasonable bevel. Your preference very well may vary, but some of them they're nowhere close to what they ought to be. But these are at a really good starting place for you. The next tool you have is you have a 3/4 inch square scraper, 1/4 inch thick. I might have preferred a rounded scraper, but it depends on the kind of work you're doing. If you're doing mostly bowls, you might want to change this profile, maybe by regrinding it. If you do a lot of in-grain hollowing, you might want to keep it like it is, and this is also great for platters. The skew, it's a matter of preference. The size is good. I like the 3/4 inch. That's my go-to size for my favorite skew. It is cut at a 70-degree radius, which is pretty standard. Now this one happens to be an oval skew. That's not normally my choice. I don't have an oval skew, so I'm going to be interested to see how I like an oval skew. I know we have a local production turner, Nick Cook, that swears by it, wouldn't use anything else. But whether you use a standard rectangular skew or an oval skew is a personal preference. The next item on here is a very nice size diamond parting tool. Diamond means it's thicker in the middle and thinner on the edge, so you can get less binding as you go in. And this is a bit over 1/8 of an inch thick. It's actually about 4 mils compared to an 1/8 inch, which is 3 millimeter. It comes with a bowl gouge. In this case, this is a 3/8 inch bar size. I would have preferred a 1/2 inch. But I do have a 3/8 inch. I do use it, so it's certainly a good size for smaller bowls. might be a little small when you start moving up, because a 3/8 inch can only safely overhang the tool rest by about 1.5 inches. The other tool, which is very nice, is a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. My preference would have been that they had swapped the size and they'd had a 1/2 inch bowl gouge and a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. But if you'll notice from watching Richard Raffin's videos, he frequently, almost always, uses a spindle gouge for the outside of a bowl. So you could use this on the outside of a bowl and get a larger shavings than you could with this, and then you switch to this for the inside of the bowl. Another thing that was obvious to me is the flute length is very long, which means you're going to get more usable life out of it. It's unusual to get a tool with this long a flute. Certainly the cheaper ones from Benjamin Best and the like tend to have much shorter flutes. So this is, especially if you're learning how to sharpen, you know, you're going to appreciate the longer flute on both the spindle gouge and the bowl gouge. Just for comparison, here's a brand new 1/2 inch spindle gouge, and this is the 1/2 inch with the fine bite tool. It's been sharpened a couple of times, but I haven't really reduced the length. And this is a very high quality tool made in the United States, so you can see that this gives you a little more bang for the buck. All of these tools come with a 12-inch handle, which is an appropriate size for all of these tools. I would say my personal preference would be for a spindle gouge to have somewhat of a shorter handle. For example, here's the one I turned for this other one that I had, and it's 10 inches long, which I find a little easier to traverse in front of the body, but that tends to be a personal preference. Same thing with the Skew. I would prefer a little bit shorter handle on the Skew, but heck, you can always modify it or remount it in a handle of your own choosing. All right, I'm going to put all these tools through its paces to make sure I don't find something obvious. I want to give you a quick comparison of the spindle roughing gouge compared to my workhorse spindle roughing gouge, which I've been using for years. And you can see they appear to be virtually identical, and even my handle length is approximately the same as their 12-inch handle. So this is a very dry piece of Bradford pear, very hard. It's about 10 inches long and about 8 inches across. I'm going to rough it out with a spindle roughing gouge. This is a much more typical task for spindle roughing gouge, taking a square down to round of something, 2-3 inches. Parting tool is typically used for parting off smaller pieces of wood, such as this. The other thing it's used for typically is making a tenon for a chuck. And the other task, of course, is for longer projects, sometimes shorter projects, you use it for measuring depth, setting the depth. And I think it's important to note that I mentioned the grinds came from the factory in a pretty good condition. In this case, this was ground to an included angle of 60 degrees, which exactly matched what I normally have my parting tool at, 60 degrees. Next, we're going to look at the oval Skew. Again, 3/4, which is my preferred size. A 1/2 inch I find too small, 1 inch a little bit large for most of my projects. This one probably could call for a larger Skew. Let's see how this works. We're going to set the tool rest where we're cutting somewhere close to the 11 o'clock position for a planing cut. spindle gouge for a little simple bead project. Okay, let's try the square scraper, so let's see what kind of results we get. Handle's up just a little bit higher than the cutting edge. I'm getting some nice shavings. Okay. Alright, I'm going to take a few passes with this bowl gouge on this 7 to 8 inch chestnut bowl. I'm using the original grind that hasn't been modified or resharpened or anything. Now let's do the inside of the bowl. Got to crew up this rim. Slight pull cuts till I get the end of it clean, so I don't get too much bounce when I come across. On this size bowl, just a bit over 7 inches, right at 7 inches, because it's a somewhat deep bowl, about 2.5 inches deep. By the time we get down toward the bottom, we're at about, the tip of the tool is about 1.5 inches over the tool rest, which is just about the limits of this size bowl gouge. Going down further, I start picking up chatter, I think, as you can hear. This is also a time where down at the lower third of the bowl where you're cutting in grain, which puts a little more stress on it. So if you're a bowl turner and you're turning a bowl 8 inches, more than 2.5 inches, you're going to be stretched with that 3/8 inch bowl gouge as you get near the bottom, and you'd probably want to switch to a scraper, a round nose scraper, but the kit comes with square, so if you're doing bowls you might want to just change it up, but if you're doing, again, platters or in-grain hollowing, then leave it square. But you can't use that square scraper on the inside of this bowl. Alright, in summary, a lot of experienced turners recommend against buying a set, and it's because typically a set will include a tool that a turner may never use. It just wouldn't be suitable for what they're doing, or it misses an essential tool. I think this set might be an exception in that it includes all the 6 basic tools that I would recommend to anybody. There are some pros and cons. The pros I've already mentioned. You know, they're very high quality, they're nice appearance, good solid handles out of European hardwood, cryogenically treated, so the edge should last longer than just regular M2 tool steel. The longer flutes, so you're going to get more usable life out of the spindle gouge and the bowl gouge. Those are all pros. Now the cons, in my case, may be more personal preferences, in that my workhorse spindle gouge is a 3/8 inch because I do a lot of spindle turning of 2 inches and smaller. Then I can use a 1/2 inch, but I find a 3/8 a better fit for me. But I still use a 1/2 inch quite a bit. The 3/8 inch bowl gouge is a little bit on the small end, I think. For let's put it this way: I use a 1/2 inch bowl gouge more than I do a 3/8, but I use both of them. So I think they'd have been better off at swapping the 3/8 inch and made that a spindle gouge and a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. But that doesn't, not a reflection on the quality of the tools. But I'd say overall, I think for the $280 current selling price, this is a really good value. If it's something you're interested in, there'll be a link in the show notes in the description area. And if you buy one, I will get a small commission. Remember, y'all stay safe and come on back, you hear?